Our closing quarter brings us to Chit Chat with Manoj. This segment is a much awaited segment of many households, but I do see why. Chit Chat with Manoj is founded, directed, and hosted by Mr. Manoj Singh. Mr. Singh is a stage actor and the CEO of Caesar Productions. He, along with his wife, Mrs. Geeta Singh, feature the annual DC South Asian Film Festival here in the DC metro area. What's up their sleeve for this year? We will unveil that information to you on a later date, so pay close attention to the Capitol Forum. But for this morning, Mr. Singh has invited a gentleman by the name of Mr. Mansoor Ahmed to our studio to discuss NASA and its mission. Let's hear this discussion.
Welcome to Chit Chat with Manoj. I'm Manoj Singh. Hello, Adab, Namaste. Today we are going to talk about NASA and its program and see what are the benefits for us, a common man. And joining me for this discussion today is a director at NASA, Mansoor Ahmed. Welcome, Mansoor. I really appreciate your time and to come on my show. So tell us about yourself, where you grew up, your education, and what you do at NASA.
I grew up in Peshawar, Pakistan. I was quite young, actually, maybe 15, 16 years old when I moved here to the Maryland area with my parents. Went to 1 year of high school here in Bladensburg and then got my bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from University of Maryland. Got into the industry, workforce, and then decided to do a master's as well at part-time basis at George Washington University. Got my master's in mechanical engineering from there, and the rest is history.
NASA, as far as I remember from childhood, came into picture because it was news, quite a bit in news due to John F. Kennedy, the president, and the Apollo program. And then after that, the shuttle and the space station, and of course in between we hear about the Mars program. What are some of the major now, and after the shuttle stopped, it seemed like there's some sort of gap or a vacuum. What are some of the major programs NASA is working on?
Yeah, I think the public generally focuses on the human exploration portion of NASA, which is obviously more exciting and interesting to watch. But as a matter of fact, NASA has at least 4 different divisions, so to speak, with different focuses. We have human exploration. That's where the shuttle, space station, astronauts, and going into space, sending humans to space comes in. The next one is science, and that can be broken into earth science, which is understanding of the earth, our climate, our weather, the interactions of different elements around Earth, our magnetospheres and so forth. There's heliophysics, that's understanding the sun. And then planetary science, understanding our own solar system. So those all fall under science. I'll come back to that in a minute. But then we also have the A in NASA is for aeronautics. And so we are doing a lot of research in aeronautics with a focus on building safer airplanes, lighter airplanes, more efficient airplanes, software for more efficient flying, more safe flying. And so there are a lot of things actually going on across all of those 4 divisions. My focus, I am within the science division. And within the science division, like I said, there are several subsections, earth science and so on. My area of responsibility is astrophysics, so that is looking away outside into the universe other than our own solar system and understand the overall workings of the universe.
That's a good summary. We'll touch upon those later in our questions. So what are some of the major discoveries we have come across on Mars lately? I know there's a vehicle which is landed there and doing some experiments.
Yeah, Mars is very, very exciting, not just for NASA, but I think ever since human beings started to gaze up in the sky and started noticing this red planet, there's a huge fascination about Mars. We imagine Martians coming down and attacking the Earth and so on. And that's a good reason for that fascination. Mars is very, very similar to Earth. in certain respects. The pictures we see from our rovers, and we have several orbiting satellites who are continuously mapping Mars, that it is very, or at least used to be very similar to Earth. It has clay, which indicates that there must have been water at some time. It has mountains, it has rocks. And from a distance, we can see old channels where water probably did flow. It probably had atmosphere. And so it is very, very obvious that at one point, several billion years ago, Mars was habitable. And if that was the case, it's probably had life or could have life. The question is, why doesn't it now? What happened to Mars that has now caused it to be uninhabitable? And so there are several reasons for understanding that. The most importantly is to make sure that doesn't happen to us, to Earth, so that if we understand the mechanisms that caused Mars to be uninhabitable, it will help us to survive, take better care of our own planet. That's one reason, but there's so many philosophical, not necessarily philosophical, but explorative reasons to go to Mars. Eventually, we believe in the long run, maybe not in 10, 15, or 20, or 30 years, but 100 or 200 years from now, human survival will depend on being able to leave the Earth and be independent of Earth and be able to live somewhere else. So some of the activities that NASA is doing towards that goal is to try and figure out how we can send humans to Mars. It's a long journey. How can we be self-sustaining at Mars? You probably see in the movie Martian. A lot of the things he does is actually the research that we are currently doing and hope to be able to do one day. So I think Mars is interesting from that perspective as well.
Yes, so I went to Houston, the NASA's one of the centers there, and they were talking about building a vehicle for Mars, a manned vehicle for Mars, and also talking about a possibility that moon might be a stop in between, or even an asteroid. Is that still on schedule, and when is it supposed to be? After the testing be done and realistically someone will go?
So going to Mars is still the eventual goal for our exploration aspects. A lot of people are confused that just because we're not flying shuttle, that's the end of NASA. The reason the shuttle is not flying anymore is because the shuttle has served its purpose. It was designed to build the space station and to also service Hubble. So it only can go to low Earth orbit where the space station is. It cannot go deeper than that, so we need different vehicles. So NASA is working on much bigger rockets, 2 different or 3 different versions. One that can actually send humans, but another one that can send cargo. Because like I said, it takes 8 or 9 months to get to Mars. So how do you feed these people or provide the right amount of oxygen? That's a lot of weight, resources that you need to be able to have for these things. So we need much bigger rockets, and we are working on that. There's a lot of challenges yet to be conquered in terms of the technologies we need to be able to be independent. So because of that, it's not anytime soon that we can actually send humans to Mars. So, but the goal is within late 2025 or 2030s, we hopefully will have boots on the ground on Mars.
A lot of people do not know, and it's good to know actually, that NASA does publish a magazine. And all these programs which have happened in the past, the research, R&D which is going on because of Apollo, shuttle, that lot of byproducts or the products which we use in our daily life came out from it, and they mentioned about that in the magazine. Talk about some of the ones which we use now.
Yeah, there are a lot of technologies that have been transferred into the general public for the public benefit. I have that book you're talking about, one of these books. Yeah. We publish one every year. You can see how thick it is. This is just from 1 year. And within that, there are spin-offs in 6 or 7 different areas, in health and medicine, transportation, like I said, the aeronautical research we do, public safety, consumer goods, energy, IT, industrial production. So there are so many technologies that the human benefit from that we general public doesn't really know about. I don't know exact numbers, but I think it's almost like 6 times the economic growth produced by the technologies produced by NASA for any given $1 that you invest in the R&D that NASA does, for example. So
I know you do a lot of work with NOVA also on the weather side.
Absolutely.
With all these satellites. Yeah.
yeah.
So, what is now the main objective of NASA? I mean, there was a time during President Kennedy's time, and of course the Cold War, that it was going to the moon, but every would come on connected with it. What is it now that which we want to do? Because that question always comes up.
Right. So I think the Apollo program was at the peak of NASA because the entire country was behind it. I guess because we wanted to be number one that everybody can understand. Right now, the equivalent goal that general public can understand again is getting on Mars, but for some reason it does not have the same either appeal or enthusiasm in the general public, so that public is not aware of it, and therefore we don't have that much support. Therefore, we don't have that budget that we used to have at Apollo days, to do that kind of program, and that's such a short time. But beyond that, there are so many other things that we are doing in astrophysics and understanding our universe. How the stars are born, how the black holes are born, what do the stars' lives and deaths have to do with us. So, for example, in the early Big Bang, only the more generic elements like oxygen and not oxygen, I mean hydrogen and nitrogen existed, whereas we are made out of carbon and we need oxygen, which is much heavier elements. So how do they come about? So understanding all that is what we are making headwinds towards also.
So I know a lot of South Asians work for NASA. There was astronauts as well, Chawla. And what are how's, I know I also saw an invitation to ISRO, Indian Space Agency, to work with NASA on Mars.
Right.
What is the role of South Asians? How we helping NASA achieve their goal?
Yeah, there are a lot of South Asian people working in all aspects of NASA, anywhere from research and detector developments in IT and so forth. But also the Indian ISRO needs to be commended for their progress that they have made. It is not an easy thing to send anything to Mars, and be able to do that shows a lot of progress and technology prowess that India has achieved.
Yeah, I know. And lately I do also know that just recently the floods in Chennai, and NASA provided a lot of data to help understand why that happened, and that was also because of the satellite technology. And coming back to Mars, it seems like there's more possibility because of drones and the robotic technology. Seems like more of that will go first than a manned, because there's always this risk factor with manned aircraft.
But that we are already doing. I mean, the robotic missions have been there for several years now. I mean, we have 2 rovers already roaming around there. So that we are on the forefront of doing robotically. The next challenge really is how to send humans there safely so they can be independent of the Earth.
So let's come to Earth. What is the latest? I know there's a lot of research going on with McDonnell Douglas and all this vehicle which will use the space, and we could be in India or Pakistan in 2 hours or 3 hours, go out to outer space, lower orbit, and come back. Where are we with that? When do you think it being real?
Yeah, I'm not too intimately involved with those aspects of the private industry, other than that we have actually encouraged and actually helped several private industries to come and take over what shuttle would do, so that we don't have to build those rockets just to go and send cargoes and humans just to space stations. We just need to buy a ticket for somebody who has built a bus. And there are 3 industries now who can do that, SpaceX and Bigelow's and some couple other ones. And so that's what we have encouraged, so the industry can take over the low Earth orbit activities.
That's good. Any last minute comment to the audience about NASA you like to talk about so they, general audience can have more interest in what's going on?
Yeah, I think I can speak more intelligently for astrophysics. I mean, there's huge amount of knowledge that we have gained from Hubble Space Telescope that now we understand our universe much better. But because of that, we also now have more questions because Hubble has created more questions than it answered. And so we're building bigger and bigger telescopes for space, James Webb Space Telescope, which will be 4 times bigger and more 6 times powerful than Hubble, will be launched, and we're looking ahead beyond that. So we need young generation of today to think about science and technology and go into the education areas where we can solve some of these technology needs that we have to be able to go to Mars and understand our universe better.
Thank you very much. I hope this was an interesting discussion for you. You can always go on NASA's website and read more about their programs. I'll end with 2 quotes, very good quotes I came across. Astronomy compels the soul to look upward and leads us from this world to another, Plato. Another, it's human nature to stretch, to go, to see, to understand. Exploration is not a choice, really, it's an imperative. Michael Collins. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the mothers a very happy Mother's Day. And like I always say in the end, life is short, have fun, and have no regrets. Goodbye and all the best.